Welcome to Possibility and Pandemic. My name is Caitlin. I'm a student from SCAS. I'm Irish, Serbian, and Métis. My great-grandmother is from Fort Chip near the tar sands up north. We are broadcasting from Anishinaabe territory.
My name is Bill Ward, and I'm a teacher at SCAS. I was born in Hamilton, Ontario, and my origin is Scottish on my dad's side and Irish on my mom's side. The land that we are on is the territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat. These First Nations have been caretakers of the land for millennia. As settlers, we must respect First Nations and honor the treaties of this territory. In addition, we must change the cycle of indifference and neglect regarding Indigenous lives, contributions, and traditions. Now and in the future, we must strive harder to follow the wisdom of Indigenous elders and preserve the beautiful land that we are fortunate to inhabit for the well-being of the people, animals, and plants, as well as the earth as a whole. By gaining knowledge and sincerely applying what we learn, we can move towards restoring the balance of nature, fulfilling our commitments as keepers of the land, and protecting the unalienable rights of Indigenous peoples.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Caitlin. My name is Janet Santos. I'd now like to introduce our guest speaker today, Nyle Johnston. Megazé is a profoundly talented storyteller and artist from the Chippewas of Nawash, Unceded First Nation. Nyle grew up surrounded by a family of storytellers and artists, and by the books brought home by his mom, who worked as a librarian. Nyle learned the traditional practice of storytelling from his great-grandmother and elder, Nyle Johnston, as well as from his cousin, the renowned writer, Basil Johnston. I first met Nyle about 8 years ago when I was first learning of my Indigenous background. Nyle was working at Anishinaabe Health at the time as an Ashkabewis, and he helped me a little bit during that weird, awkward period where you're just trying to make a connection after years of having that knowledge severed from your bloodlines. I learned something about what it means to be Indigenous as I watched Nyle carry himself with humility as he served his community. Nyle's stunning and meticulously rendered paintings are part of the AGO's permanent collection, and they show our spiritual interconnectedness with the animal and the plant nations. Through the art of storytelling, Nyle engages in the transmission of Indigenous knowledge regarding language, history, science, mathematics, geography, nature, biology, the universe, morals, family values, and community responsibilities. Try to look for the many layers of knowledge in what Nyle shares with us today. Ani, Nyle, thank you so much for joining us today.
Miigwech to everybody, to all the facilitators and the coordinators. And when I say miigwech, it's Ojibwe Anishinaabe moment for thank you. I just really want to emphasize how humbling it is to be able to share just a little bit of what I know. You know, I've been speaking in front of the public since I was a very young kid. I just turned 35 not that long ago, but to this day, I still get nervous. And I still get anxiety as well, because I know some people, they're not really comfortable talking in front of people. So just to let you know that even though I've been doing it since I was a kid, I still get nervous as well. I'm going to start with an introduction. I'm going to be speaking the language, which is Anishinaabe Moen, or Ojibwe, some people call it Chippewa. And then I'll try my best to translate it to English. Nana Bojo. Wish conseil migizin in addition cause migwen say suck name da so canuck. Now shignig ni donja ba mean what the granto ne donja ba mean what mishi makanakanishanaabe aki ni donja ba. I carry two names. One name, my English name is Nyle Johnston, but creation and my ancestors know me as Whistling Eagle. So as wish conseil migizin. I'm from the Little People clan, the Mimigwen say suck. So those are those little beings. And I was born and raised on my reserve with a Nea or the point of land surrounded by water on three sides, also known as the Chippewas and Nawash, also known as Cape Croker. I don't really know who Croker was, so I'm just going to call it Nawash or Nea. And that's located up on the Bruce Peninsula, also known as the Saginaw Ojibwe Peninsula, and that's the traditional territory of my people. The Ojibwe, the Anishinaabe, they're a big nation, a really big nation that encompass most of the Great Lakes territories, and they even push out west towards the prairies. So I don't speak for all Ojibwe people. I can only speak to the teachings and to the stories as I've received them and that I've come to understand them from my teachers. And another thing I always put out, another disclaimer, is I don't speak for all Indigenous people across Turtle Island or across North America. Our nations are so vast. There's so many beautiful nations in North America. And I don't speak for all of them. I like to get that pan-indigenizing out of my head and out of your head. When we talk about First Nations people or Native people within North America, Usually there's very iconic imagery that will come to our head. So it'll be like a very tall person with long black hair and feather riding on a horse or something like that. In my community, we're from the escarpment. We don't have horses. If there was a horse on the escarpment, it would probably break its ankles. We have such a big territory, Turtle Island, that there's so many different nations and cultures and people and food and languages and stories and teachings that come from it. To put it into context, think of somewhere the size of continental Europe. Now, if you travel from Northern Ireland down to Southern Spain, the people are very different. There's different languages, there's different nations, there's different foods, different clothing. That's only on the continent of Europe. So look at the size of North America. It would be the same thing. There's many different nations, many different people. So I can only speak for the Ojibwe people, but more specifically, I can only speak for the Ojibwe people from my territory that I've come to understand from my teachers. So I want to honor my teachers as well. It's very important that I honor my teachers, the people that taught me. That would be my great-grandmother, Nyle Johnston, Nawash. That would be my relative, Basil Johnston. I was so privileged when I was a kid that I used to travel around with Basil sometimes. And he was a storyteller. And he was getting a little older. So when he did public speaking engagements or storytellings, he would need a break. And so he would pass stories to me. And then when he needed that break, then I would share those stories as well. And for some reason, I don't know, the way that path of life has taken me, I've always been very fortunate and privileged to be surrounded by ceremony and to be surrounded by amazing teachers. For some reason in my life, these teachers always appeared in my path. And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. By no means am I perfect. You know, when I was a teenager going into high school, I strayed off the path, but it was always the traditional stories and the culture, and more importantly, the land that brought me back to my community and brought me back to the lodges. I'm what's considered in the community as an Ashkabewis or a Shkabe, which is a traditional helper. And I was very, very fortunate to be able to learn with traditional healers my whole life as well. And I want to honor some of those teachers. That's James Carpenter, Colin Mosso, Pete Cashane, Geraldine Standup, Matthew Fountain, Rob Niepatong, and Jamie Costello. For some reason, I've always had these amazing teachers come into my life. And as Janet said in the beginning, there was a time when she didn't know who she was, her identity. And then I met her when she was first coming to learn about her identity and who she was and her ancestry. And that's such an amazing gift. That's such a beautiful gift. One of the things that really helped me along my path when I was struggling, especially growing up on the reserve, was my culture and my identity. No matter how bad things got, I was always able to turn to creation and turn to my stories and to the teachings. And it honestly really helped save my life. And it always really guided my practice as a Shkabewas, a helper, and my practice as an artist. People always ask me, when did you become an artist? And to me, it's kind of a weird question, because some of my earliest memories that I have was doing art. I've always been producing art. Some of the earliest memories were drawing Ninja Turtles in my grandma's basement. Some of my earliest memories was being on the shore of Chippewas and Nawash on the Georgian Bay. And they have these beautiful rocks. And I would take those rocks and I would kind of carve imagery into it. It was really nice because my mom kept a couple of drawings that I did when I was really young. And I just rediscovered them a couple of years ago. And I think I was about 7 years of age. And I looked at one of those drawings my mom gave to me. And it was a Thunderbird pictograph. It blew my mind because this art, to me, it's a gift. It's a gift from creation, from my spirit. And it's always been there with me. And when I saw that Thunderbird that I drew when I was a child, I realized this imagery has always been there to help me and to take care of me and to nurture me. Whenever I was not doing good in my life, I was distracted with modern society. You know, especially when I moved into Toronto. I moved into Toronto when I was about 15 because I wasn't doing good in high school. But when I came down to Toronto, I really started to take my education seriously, but I was still distracted. And when I was distracted, I wouldn't be doing art. It was always when I came back to my lodge and went back to creation that the art would come back to me. So for me, it's a methodology of well-being. It's a way that I can nurture my own spirit, take care of my own spirit. Because when we take care of our own spirit, we take care of our family. When we take care of our family, we take care of our community. When we take care of our community, we take care of creation around us. One thing that I love to talk about is the first family. In the language, we say Dia Makanak. That's the first family. And for anybody that doesn't know what the first family is, when I talk about the first family, I'm not talking about the president's family. When I talk about the first family, I'm kind of, but not really talking about my mom or my brothers and my sisters. When I talk about the first family, I'm talking about creation all around us. When I talk about the first family, I'm talking about the animals. I'm talking about the insects. I'm talking about the wind. I'm talking about the rocks. I'm talking about the trees and all those beautiful medicines out there. That's the first family. In our stories, we are a part of creation. We are. And you can see that whenever we look around, look at patterns in nature. We have those same patterns in our body. We come from the two-legged nation. The two-legged nation are the human beings. And I consider the way that I've been taught, all human beings from around the world, we're all part of that family. And we're all family. When you look at the two-legged people, or the two-legged nation, we both have two eyes. We all have ears. We all have hair. We are so much alike. We really are. It's incredible how many differences we love to put up amongst each other. So when I talk about the Anishinaabe, not only am I talking about the Ojibwe people, I'm talking about all people. All people. And the first family, Dia Makanak, has always been there to take care of us. Look at the language. Look at even one word for rock. We say asinak or asine. Asine. The way that you break down the language is when we actually address a rock, it has a spirit. It's within the language. It's not an inanimate object. Our language shows that it's a being. It has spirit. So just trying to get everybody into the context of the Anishinaabe worldview that I've been taught and how I look at creation. Because we're such a part of it. And there's come to be such a disconnection from that. The way that the Western methodologies of thinking, we think that we're on the top of this pyramid. And the rest of creation is kind of below that. When in actuality, we're just a part of it. There's a word in the language that I've been taught, non-kumakasinekwe, under the earth rock woman, also known as Mother Earth. Mother Earth, that is the mother of creation. She takes care of us every single day. Every single day. She'll nurture us. She'll watch over us. She'll protect us. She'll let all of the wonderful things of creation nurture us and protect us. The mother of creation loves her children so much. When we first woke up this morning, we don't even think about it. Everybody that's out there, just take a breath and breathe out. All of creation is working to produce that air, produce that oxygen. We do it without even thinking. Take another breath. Breathe out. It's such a beautiful gift. The Great Lakes is an amazing area. It's one of the biggest deposits of fresh water in the world. So what a gift that we have that beautiful water to drink. So amazing. This is one of my favorite seasons, the spring, because we watch creation wake up around the Great Lakes. If you look outside now, it wasn't like this about 3 weeks ago. I'm in Toronto, but if I look outside, everything just popped. There's so much greenery. Creation woke up, the flowers are coming back. It's beautiful, it nurtures me, it really helps me. Creation is so beautiful. It's such a beautiful interwoven system. And we have to, I can only speak for myself, but I have to learn how to respect that and to be connected to that and to honor that. The mother of creation, like I said, will love us, will nurture us, but there's always a duality to that love. Another part of that spectrum of love is discipline. Sometimes the mother of creation has to discipline her children, and she does that with a good heart. Think of my own children. If they're doing something repeatedly and it's going to hurt them or it's going to hurt their families, then I'm going to have to discipline. I do that because I love them. Such a beautiful gift. It's a little bit of what I try to do with my art, is I try to tell those stories. I try to let people kind of look and connect and start asking questions about creation around them. It's a strange time right now with the pandemic going on. But to me, I find it to be a hopeful time. And don't get me wrong, I feel for a lot of people that are sick out there. I feel for our communities, for family members. But we have to remember that it was almost 100 years ago, almost exactly 100 years ago, that there was another sickness that encompassed the world. And that was the flu. And through our stories, there's always been these cycles of sickness that will appear. The Anishinaabe have prophecies of these sicknesses. Our people have been talking about these cycles of sicknesses that happen within creation. To me, when I look at it, and people always tell me, they're like, no, you're too optimistic. Migiza, you're way too optimistic. It's how I have to think so I can look at what's going on and find hope within that. To me, it shows that we are a part of that cycle. We are such a part of creation. These cycles are going to happen. These cycles will happen again. But we have to understand that it's a natural thing. The mother of creation, she's had to cleanse the world. In our stories, twice. And when she cleansed the world, she did that with water. The way that I've been taught, the Anishinaabe, the people, long time ago, were not living in a good way. They weren't. There was a lot of jealousy amongst the people. There was a lot of fighting amongst the people. They weren't walking in creation with humility, with love, with truth, with courage, with wisdom. They were over-harvesting the medicines, the plants. They were wasteful of food. Sometimes when they would harvest those medicines or those berries, they would waste them. They weren't respecting them. They were just consuming. They would hunt animals and waste a lot of those. They were gossiping about their neighbors. They were jealous. They weren't showing that love, that kind, nurturing soul that we are. Creator, Gijen Manado, saw this and was not happy. So Gijen Manado and the mother of creation sent the rain, the water, to cleanse the earth. In our stories, this happened twice. There's been 2 great floods within the Anishinaabe creation stories. And it's beautiful because when I start looking at these creation stories, I start seeing the commonalities with different nations from across the world. I want to say miigwech to everybody, thank you to everybody, and I want to honor everybody's spirit. I want to honor everybody here that's come today. I want to honor all of the amazing teachings that you carry, all the amazing languages that you carry, all of the amazing creation stories that you carry. I want to honor those. Our last flood story would be Nanabojo on the log. And in this story, Nanabojo was floating in a big body of water. The world was flooded. And there was this huge tree that floated by. Nanabojo noticed something, that all of the animals were kind of scrambling to that log, that birds were landing on that log for rest. Can anybody out there tell me of another creation story that starts with this massive flood? I know one of the most popular ones that we know of is there's this person that built this huge wooden boat and then was given instruction to collect 2 animals, 2 of every animal to be on this boat. That's kind of just like the story that I learned. this huge tree, this huge wooden boat, all the animals on it, massive floods. I don't speak for other tribes, I don't speak for other nations, but I've read the story of Gilgamesh and this massive flood that happened. These ancestors from all over the world have been observing creation and sharing these stories and keeping these stories alive. And I've witnessed these amazing floods that happened within creation and documented them within their stories. That's so amazing to me. I love seeing the commonalities within all of these creation stories. It gives me hope. I think it's so beautiful. But for some reason, some people were taught that that's not the right story. That's not how you do, that's not right, that's not right. That's what I mean. We like to put up these differences. But to me, it just shows how beautiful and how connected we really all are. I'm going to start with a short story. And I love sharing the story when I'm first introduced to a group, because to me, there's a lot of teachings within it. I've heard this story since I was a little kid. And I'll keep hearing the story and I'll still figure out things about my own teachings and my own life within it. This story was passed to me from Basil Johnston. And it's called The Gift of the Stars. A long time ago, a long time ago. Now, I'm not talking about 50 years ago. I'm not talking about 80 years ago. I'm talking about a long time ago. I live in Toronto, so when I look out my window, I see buildings. I see houses. I see roads. When this story happened, I would look out where I am and I would see creation. I would see nature, trees, meadows, beautiful rivers. I would see the animals harvesting medicines. I would see the birds spreading seeds of creation, singing their beautiful songs. I would see the Anishinaabe, the people, going about their daily activities, washing clothes, making clothes, hunting, harvesting, and also just enjoying creation. Way back then, there was this community. And in this community, there was a wigwam, a lodge, a house. And in this wigwam, there was a family. And in this family, there was a grandmother. And our word for grandmother is nokomis. I want everybody to try saying that. Nokomis.
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 Yeah, everybody speaking Ojibwe, so cool. Nokomis, grandma. She had a grandson. That grandson was named Southwind. And Southwind was very young. Southwind was about 6 years old at this time. And during the nice months when the weather was good and the skies were clear, at sunset, Nokomis and Southwind would walk outside of the community and to the top of this big hill. They would get to the top of this hill and they would look up. They would watch the stars. And I got some young children, and I don't know if you guys got young children or nieces and nephews, but around 5 and 6, these young children, they're always asking why. They're so curious about the environment around them. They're always pushing limits, pushing their boundaries. They're trying to figure everything out. They're always why? Nokomis is looking up. Southwind's looking up. Nokomis. Yes, my boy. What are those? Oh, my boy. Those are stars. I'm looking up. Nokomis? What are stars? Nokomis just smiles. Every night during the good months, they would go out to the top of this hill to look at the stars. Still, another night, they're looking up. Nokomis, what are those stars? Oh, my boy. You see, every single light up there, every single star is a baby. It's a beautiful gift. Southwind, kind of confused. Those are babies? Those are gifts? I don't understand. Nokomis just smiles. Then all of a sudden, Southwind sees something. One of those babies, one of those stars falls down to the earth. Southwind's really nervous. Nokomis! Nokomis! One of those babies, one of those stars are falling. They're gonna get hurt. Nokomis. Kawin. No. Kawin, my boy. You see, somebody tonight is going to receive a very special gift. A very special gift of a baby. A woman is going to receive that beautiful gift of that baby. And it's going to bring love and joy to her and to that family. And that will bring love and joy to the community. You know, Southland, looking up. He's trying to figure it out. Okay, so they're stars, they're gifts, they're babies. Nokomis, I don't understand. Nokomis just smiles. Nokomis, yes, my boy. Am I going to get a baby? Kawin, my boy. Only the woman will receive that gift of that baby. But you'll receive a gift. You'll get a gift too. And it'll be very special to you. Don't worry. Southwind's looking up. He's really excited now. I'm going to get a gift. He's looking up. He's looking up. He's looking. He's looking. Do you know what he got? He got a sore neck. It hurts when you look up that long. Do some stretches. Just take a minute. All right? Seasons come. Seasons go. Winter came in. This winter that came in was really hard. We're so lucky today, especially around the Great Lakes. We're so lucky. Winter is very different now. We have hydro and we have heating. We can store food in our refrigerators. We have dry goods in our cupboards. Back then, it was a different story. Winter was a very serious time. If that family and that community didn't prepare themselves throughout the seasons for the oncoming winter, could get very tough. This particular winter was very cold. It was very cold. It was a very hard winter. Nokomis got sick. Nokomis got so sick, she couldn't come out of her bed, her bedding. Seasons come, seasons go. The rains came back. That warm wind came back. The ice melted. Spring came back. Southwind's a little older. He's still going out at night to the top of that hill to look at the stars. But Nokomis couldn't come anymore. She was too sick. So on one of those nights, he's by himself. He's up on top of that hill. He's looking. He's like, I'm going to get a gift. Where is it? He's getting anxious. I know I'm going to get a gift. Nokomis told me. He would always see stars falling, but they were always so far. They weren't for him. He's getting a little discouraged now. He's like, it's not for me. So one night he's out there watching the stars for a long time. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my wigwam. Kind of disappointed. He turns around and walks down the hill towards his community. And I don't know why, but for some reason, he decided to take a glance over his shoulder. and looked. And sure enough, he saw a star fall just on the other side of that hill. He's really excited now. He runs up that hill. It's dark. He's looking. It's like, I knew it. I know it's around here. It's my gift. It fell just around here. He's looking really hard. He doesn't see anything. He sees this pond on the other side of that hill. So he walks down that hill to the base of that pond. And he's looking. He's like, I know it's here. Where is it? He doesn't see anything. All he sees are these white little flowers bobbing on the surface of that pond. I know it's here. Nah. He gives up. He goes to turn around and walk back up that hill. But then all of a sudden, he hears this voice shouting to him, take me. Take me. I'm your gift. I'm your medicine. And he's kind of startled. Like, who's saying that? He's looking. And sure enough, in the center of that pond, this little white flower was calling to him. Take me. I'm your gift. I'm your medicine. Kind of startled. So he decides to walk in. The pond's not that deep. It's only up to about his waist. He walks to the center and he sees that flower calling to him. Take me. I'm your gift. I'm your medicine. So he goes to pluck that flower. And as soon as he touches that flower to pluck it, it screams, yo, Kawin, no. You take all of me. All of me. Kind of confused. Starts feeling underneath the water, and there's this huge stalk. And it goes right to the bottom of the pond. Takes a breath and dives under. And starts digging at the roots. Took him about 4 tries. He had to come up for air, go back down, keep digging. On that 4th time, he comes up. He walks out of that pond, and he's holding this flower and this stalk and this root. And he's confused. This is my gift. This is my gift. This is my medicine. I don't know what this is. As he's walking back to his community, to his wigwam, he gets an idea. Oh, you know what? My nose, my father, spends a lot of time trapping and hunting. He knows a lot about the plants and the animals. Maybe he knows what this is. So he walks into the wigwam and he gives that to his father. And his father takes it, chops it all up, makes a tea out of it, mushkiki, makes this beautiful tea. And then starts giving that tea to Nokomis, who is still really sick. Nokomis spends 4 days and 4 nights drinking that tea. And on the 5th night, Nokomis and Southwind are walking to the top of that hill to look at the stars. Southwind. Nokomis. Yes, my boy. You know, when you were sick in your lodge, you know I was still coming to look at the stars. Nokomis just smiles. It's good, my boy. It's good. Nokomis? Yes, my boy. You know, I actually got my gift. Nokomis just smiles. It's good. Nokomis, I don't think that gift was for me. I think that gift was for you. Nokomis just smiles. No. As is the point with all of our gifts, we are all born with a gift. when we receive that gift, we have to grab it. We have to nurture it. We have to love it. We have to take care of it. But ultimately, we have to share it. We have to share it with our family, with our friends, and with our community. Miigwech. That's the story of the gift of the stars. I got some questions for everybody now. Does anybody know what flower that was? That is the white pond water lily. It's a beautiful flower, and it grows all over the world. I think in continental Asia, they call it the lotus flower. And if anybody's ever seen the water lily, it looks like a star. And if anybody gets the chance to look at a pond full of water lilies and blossom at night with the stars out, it's so uplifting. It literally looks like the cosmos on that water. And within that story, there's some teachings. And I can't give all of it. A lot of it's up for you to keep learning and to interpret. But within that story shows how we are all born with a gift. We all have a gift. I used to think that when I was younger, and a lot of youth think that as well. It's like, no, I'm not good at anything. We are all born with a gift. My gift is I get to create art and share stories. You ask me to write you a thesis or an essay, I'm not that good. You ask me to do advanced calculus or algebra, I'm not that great. You ask me to interpret it visually and those concepts, I can do that. We all are born with a gift. Everybody has a talent. There's a time in our life, usually around the early teens, that we start coming to the realization of that gift. We start finding our talents and who we are. And just like Southwind and that flower, you have to take it. You have to nurture it. But then we all must share it with one another for the love of our community, for the love of creation. I was always told that one of the worst things that an individual, that an Anishinaabe can do is waste that gift. When I share the stories, when I paint and when I draw, I'm trying to honor that gift. I'm honoring creation. I'm honoring my spirit and my place within creation. When I talk about creation, I'm not just talking about the world. I'm talking about the universe, the cosmos, the stars. Even within that story, it tells how we all come from the stars. We're that sacred being that descended from the sky. We are so connected to the world and to the universe around us. Within our body, we have minerals. Our blood is full of iron that was formed. And science is catching up to this. Science is finally catching up to what a lot of indigenous people around the world, not just the Ojibwe, have known for a long time, that we are made up of the same things that the entire universe is made up of. What a beautiful gift. To me, it's so humbling, so humbling. When you give that child that chance to look at the stars, to let their imagination run wild, to question things, to find their place, to find their gift, to find their identity, the cosmos open up to them. They start understanding their place within this long line of ancestry and creation. I don't mean to pick on Janet, but Janet was saying that there was a time when she didn't know her identity. And that's not anybody's fault. That's what colonization has done. That's what the residential schools were there for. And like I said, I'm very humbled and I'm privileged to be able to grow up with that. Very privileged. I don't take it lightly. And I've watched it time and time again. And for myself, when I was given my identity, my spirit name, my clan, my colors, the world opened up to me. And I started really understanding my place within community, family, and creation. I started honoring myself When we honor and respect ourselves, we honor and respect creation around us. And don't forget, remember Basil told this to me. He would say, Nyle, and this stuck with me my whole life, and it burned into my head. And I take this very seriously. He said, Nyle, you know what's going on? Everybody likes to think of the creation story as something that happened a long time ago. We're so disconnected from it. We're not a part of that creation. It's gone, it's over. We just disconnected ourselves from that creation story. When in actuality, the creation story is an ongoing narrative. The creation story is still unfolding. A couple hundred years from now, we're going to be the ancestors, and the people will look back at this time, and they'll have stories. So I was always told, how are you going to add to that story? What are you going to do for the creation story? That's why I paint. That's why I share what was shared with me. It's a way of adding to that narrative, loving and respecting that narrative, myself and my place within that. It's a really beautiful thing. It's a tough time right now. It is. But we got to remember that it's a time when creation, when Nankumikasinikwe, Mother Earth, can regenerate herself, to kind of recharge. Think of all those national parks and provincial parks that would have been flooded the May 24 weekend, would have been absolutely flooded with people, causing lots of noise, stomping around the bush. Those bears, they go into a long sleep, a long vision quest, a hibernation. Makate makwa, that black bear. When that black bear wakes up, it's very groggy, it's very hungry. It needs to go out and start collecting medicines and eating to regenerate itself so it can keep sharing its gifts with creation around us. When those bears woke up and those animals start waking up, they had first dibs at the medicines. They didn't have all that noise to scare them off. They actually got a fighting chance to start harvesting all those beautiful medicines that will get their body going again, wake them up and take care of their new children and keep spreading their medicine to the people. Those bears, they do a lot for us. In our stories, they've shown us medicines. If you watch a bear in creation, if it gets sick, it knows exactly what berries to eat, what barks to eat, what roots to dig up. It's instructed the people on how to do this. We've watched, we've learned from that bear. So I look at it as a time that we need to maybe rest a little bit. And nature is regenerating. And it shows me, like I said before, that we're a part of this cycle. We're a part of creation. These sicknesses have happened in the past, and I don't mean to sound dready or anything, but they'll happen in the future. It's that beautiful gift of that cycle. I just wanted to share kind of how I'm looking at what's going on around me and kind of find some hope and positivity within that. My name is Migize, that bald eagle, white-headed eagle. That white-headed eagle carries the gift and the teaching of love. I am part of that. I have to look with love, honor myself, honor my spirit. If I don't, I'll get sick. And to everybody out there, hold on to hope. Hold on to that love. Understand that it's our first family and they're taking a moment and we're giving them that space to recharge. Yes, we're losing some people. We are. But at the same time, we're gaining the regeneration of these medicines. The bears, they'll be strong again. Animals will be strong. The water is getting cleaner. And like I said, I don't speak for all Ojibwe people. I don't speak for all Anishinaabe. I can only speak to the stories and the teachings that I've come to understand and that I've interpreted from my teachers. Sorry, Jan.
Would you be able to show us that painting that you did the other day? The one that I felt was about power somehow.
If anybody out there wants to look, I guess, would be on my Instagram or my Facebook. My Instagram is Miigizi, Migize. I did an image called the Protection from the Great Sickness. There's a lot going on in that, and I'm getting lots of questions, but you know what? You don't give them everything at once. And I love when people look at my art, they'll have their own interpretations based on their own worldviews and understanding from their own cultures and stories. They'll share things with me that they see within my art. And like I said, I'm not like, no, that's not right. I'm like, wow, that's amazing because I get to learn more. One person from Egypt one time was like, wow, you know, we have figures that look like yours that you draw, that sit in a canoe, in a boat, in a vessel. So when they're looking at my art, they're actually relearning a little bit of their creation stories and their imagery. When I talk about my own language, sometimes people are curious about their own languages that they carry. Because like I said, we all come from beautiful indigenous communities, even continental Europe. We all carry creation stories. You know, it's been a weird chapter of history because now we're looking at a lot of Roman Catholic stories and those become more dominant. But people forget there were cultures before. It's a beautiful gift. I can show you another painting that I did, I guess. So like this one.
Wow.
That's the grandmother and the grandchild. And that grandmother's holding that gift of that medicine, is sharing those stories, reconnecting with the first family. It's a visual representation of the creator and the stars and the cosmos with the Thunderbirds guarding that ceremony. You'll see the little people coming out of the medicines, holding those hand drums, guiding that next generation, protecting them. Little bit. So that's some of my canvas work. And then here, that's Grandmother Thunderbird in the center of that great turtle. That big turtle is a representation of the first mother of creation of North America, Turtle Island. And again, those children are reaching and reconnecting with that sacred feminine, reconnecting with their creation stories, all while the grandmother protects them. Once those children are given the gifts of their language, of their culture, of their stories, of their ancestry, the cosmos will open up to them. It's a little bit about what's going on in this one. It's a lot more.
We're getting comments that this is gorgeous artwork, and one of my students wants to know if you can explain the concept of first family a little bit more.
First family?
Yeah.
The first family, Dia Makanak. We are a part of this greater system of creation, of this bigger family. Think of our bodies. We are made up of, I don't know the exact number, it's almost between 75 and 80% water. When you look at the world, it's almost the exact same ratio that's covered with water. It's the same as us. We are mostly water. We are made up of that first family. When you look at our veins take these patterns of self-repetition. There's these patterns that are ingrained within our RNA and our DNA that come from creation, that show. When you look at river systems and deltas, how fresh water breaks into the ocean, it'll take these same patterns. When you look at tree roots, you'll see those same patterns running through creation. They're in us. We are made up of that. When you look at our brainstem in the back of our head, look at a picture of a brainstem. It looks like a cedar tree. Nokumis kishikatik, grandmother tree, cedar tree. We have a cedar tree in the back of our head. We have river systems flowing through our bodies. We are made up of water, these minerals that were formed within supernovas light years away from us. We are made up of everything in creation. That's the first family. Insects, rocks, water, minerals, birds, humans, bears. We're all a part of that family. It's a little bit more about the first family.
I love that you were drawing Thunderbirds when you were a little kid. I was wondering, is there anything that you could share with us about the Thunderbirds?
I always say when people start asking those questions, I always say, and this is the way I was taught, good question. It's a good question. Those Thunderbirds too, like I said, when I found that Thunderbird that I drew when I was 7, I really started realizing that these Thunderbirds have been always there with me. And I actually carry those Thunderbirds with me. You'll see a lot of Thunderbirds and little people all over me. Those Thunderbirds. Oh, okay, Janet. Banana Thunderbirds. They can be shapeshifters. But I guess one of the most common ways that people will represent them is in the form of these huge birds. The way I was taught is those thunderbirds are the ultimate protectors of the first mother of creation. They bring water. They carry those waters. They bring those rains. They bring those thunderstorms. Sometimes from their eyes will flash lightning. When there is a piece of land that's so depleted of nutrients, what do farmers do usually? They'll burn it. They'll set fire. And it'll actually bring new growth. It will regenerate the land. Those fires, those thunderbirds can stoke the fires of revitalization, not only with fire, but with water. Those thunderbirds, the way I was taught, they nest in the mountains out west. It's where those thunderbird nests are. We're in the season of the thunderbirds coming back to this region because they go and rest or they go to other parts of the world during different seasons. In the winter time, we don't have thunderstorms around here. But those thunderbirds, next time there's a big thunderstorm, look at which way those thunderstorms are traveling. They'll always come from the west and travel eastward across Turtle Island, bringing that water. They'll wake up from those nests in the mountains out west and go right across Turtle Island, bringing water. But like I said, they're the ultimate protectors of Mother Earth. I was talking about the flood, that great flood, when Gajim Manado saw that the people weren't living in harmony, weren't living in balance, weren't living in that good way. The Mother Creation decided to cleanse with water. She called upon the thunderbirds to bring that rain. The rain started and it just didn't stop until the world was flooded. Powerful, very powerful. A little bit. There's lots of stories about those thunderbirds. And I love it too, because I can only speak for myself, and I'm not speaking for other cultures out there. But I start looking at these stories, and people say that's mythology. These are legends or something like that. To me, they're real. And our ancestors all over the world have been observing these things. Think of these huge winged animals that bring fire. Is there other stories from around the world about that? Look at Asia and dragons. Huge winged beasts that breathe fire. To me, that kind of sounds like a thunderbird. Think in Europe, this huge winged thing that rises from ashes. The phoenix. To me, that sounds like a thunderbird. I traveled into Guatemala and all around the Yucatan Peninsula and seen images of this winged serpent coming down. I think Chichen Itza has these winged serpents that come down. To me, with my worldview, I look at them as thunderbirds. Our ancestors all over the world have been observing these things within creation. And I love it. It gives me goosebumps when I start thinking about it. Just how connected we all are as people. How many stories we share. They're just, I guess, interpreted with the worldview that we come from. Doesn't mean it's wrong. To me, it shows, wow, what a beautiful thing to be so connected. Even the Mimigwensi suck, those little ones, little beings that live in the woods or by the shores, by rocks. There's been little beings observed all over the world. In the Himalayas, I went to northern India, into Dharamshala. Those old ones talk about these little beings that live in the mountains. Continental Europe has stories of gnomes, has stories of fairies. Down in South America, they have these stories of these little beings. We've all been observing these wonderful protectors and beings that we get to share this beautiful world with.
Lena has a question here. Nyle, can you help us guide our students when they claim to not know their gifts?
Nurture them. Love them. Give them things that we're supposed to give children and youth. A safe environment, somewhere where they can question things around them. It's very natural for youth to test their boundaries. But for some reason, we've been taught that it's bad. You got to discipline right away. Just give them the access and that love and protection that they need. Everybody's journey is different. I don't know the answer to that. I can only say what helped me. And for me, that was reconnecting with my stories and my tradition. I love looking at creation stories, mythologies, language. And I found, like, when I study plants, not only am I studying the spirit of that plant, but I'm also studying botany, and it's finding this middle ground there.
I'm wondering if Jason wants to join in. Jason, are you out there?
Oh, hi. Thanks.
Where's Jason? Hi, Jason.
Hi. Thank you so much for this today.
No, thank you for coming and taking that time to actually listen.
Are you kidding me? This has been great. I'm going to put my video back on.
Awesome.
Hey,
Yeah.
not about
Hey,
you.
man.
Hello.
Yeah. Well, I don't know now. I had so many things to say. Now all of a sudden I feel like I don't know where the words went. You know, I teach music and I teach biology. It occurs to me that like, you know, the way we teach our science and teach the biology, it's, I mean, there's a lot of power in it, but then also it's still got that kind of sense of negating other things in it. And I try not to do that, but I don't know. There's just a comment. Yeah.
I've always been drawn to plants and medicines and the effects on the body. And then also the other, I guess, methodology of looking at it and pedagogy of looking at it as a spirit and as its own individual being. And people ask me all the time, they're like, Nyle, how did you learn so much about the medicines? How do you know so much about the plants? Different things like that. And I guess even within the story of the gift of the stars, we're learning about those. It's in our stories. Our ancestors have been passing this down for thousands of years. And modern medicine is just catching up to what our nations have known for so long.
Yeah.
We look at the white pond water lily root. I think about 5 or 6 years ago, they finally started investing like some serious research dollars into studying that plant and the effects on the body. And they're starting to find out that it's not only anti-tumor, that it also can help post-menopausal osteoporosis.
Wow.
Within elderly women. And people, they're like, isn't that a man? I'm like, yeah, you know what? We knew that. Basil told me that. Grandma told me that.
That's so cool. How do you picture a path forward? Because you mentioned a middle ground, and that as you study plants, you think of the idea of spirit. You also think of botany. How would you advise, or what do you do to, I don't know, just about like finding a middle ground and finding the commonality between the two worldviews? I mean, what advice would you give to having those things coexist?
There's two ways of understanding something. To me, and this is just the way I was taught. We're all born with this beautiful body, this vessel. And with this vessel, we come with this thing called a brain. And within that brain sits the ego. But we're also born with something else. We got to remember, we're all spirit. I'm not speaking for everybody out there. I'm just saying how it was shared to me. I'm a spirit, energy. It's infinite. But we're born into this vessel as well, so we can experience this world, planet Earth, that we can experience this little bit of time. That's what our spirit needs to be able to experience this world right now. But you got to remember that we're born with this brain, and that brain has our neocortex and the reptilian brain, fight or flight.
Yeah.
Ways that we react in situations that have evolved to protect us. When we fall, we automatically reach out. We're trying to grab onto tree branches or something. But you got to remember that we're also born with a spirit. And for me, it's connecting those two and looking at the world, not only using my brain, but also using my spirit and my heart.
Yeah.
And it's that ongoing struggle.
So you do see it as you experience it that way as well, as kind of two ways almost, and that they're talking to each other, learning from each other, something like that.
Something like that. I'm only touching the surface, and I'm still learning too.
Yeah, me too.
And it'll take a lifetime of learning for me, and I'm okay with that. Like I said, we don't run up mountains. I'm still a student. I'm a Scabe, and I'm happy to be a student. The gift of being able to learn, so amazing. We come from a really insta generation. Everything's pre-packaged, single serving. We want it now, everything now. The way I was taught, just be patient and ultimately have fun with it. Enjoy it. Enjoy this gift of life. It's a short time. Think of how something like a rock or a mineral experiences time on this earth. And then look at us. Such a short time. I can only speak for myself, but I want to spend that time with love in my heart. The way I was taught, we're all going to go back to spirit world at some point. So we're going to get all those answers again. So just enjoy yourself.
You want to start a band?
I love percussion. I see a drum kit in the back.
Yeah. Let's play.
No, thank you for sharing these ideas with us. Laura is saying, thank you so much, Nyle. Your reminder that we are all connected is so meaningful, especially for those of us who have been feeling so isolated from others lately. So yeah, Chimigwech.
Chimigwech.
Kathy has a nice question there too. Put it in the chat.
So how can storytelling be used as a tool, so whether it's art or music or any form, to challenge systemic oppression, acknowledging the complexity of the experience?
That's a beautiful question, because the way that I was taught is that our creation story is still unfolding. This is what I love about our tradition of storytelling, is that all the stories connect into another story. So really showing how far back these stories come from. I have such a responsibility to add to that creation story, not to take away from it. I don't mean like I changed the creation story, but I have to understand that this is an ongoing narrative, and it's my responsibility and duty. This is something that I agreed with when I spent those times with the ancestors before I came into this world, that I would push the narrative of the Anishinaabe and never take from it. Storytelling to me is everything, in all forms and all mediums. I do this now to protect my family and help my family. What I mean by that is I need food, I need hydro, I need a lodge. I'm so privileged to be able, for some reason, I don't know why, to be able to hear, synthesize, and then recount and tell it back. You know, and that's such a huge responsibility. I was born on the reserve and I grew up on the reserve, and it was beautiful. I'd always say this, it's like a double-edged sword. It was so beautiful. It's such a beautiful, powerful place, and be surrounded by your community and people that you can see yourself within. People that you don't need to explain your identity all the time. This feeling of nurturing and this feeling of being safe, but there's a flip side to it, because there's a lot, especially when I was growing up in the early 90s, there was a lot of sickness still. There was a lot of hurt left from the impacts of colonization. And 500 years, I don't know the exact date, but when the French and the British and the Dutch and the Germans and Irish all entered the Great Lakes territory and started really going after our people, and just watching that. And especially within those developing years, your identity and your worldview really comes to fruition, because what we see, the way I was taught, is what we see and what we believe becomes our reality. To further that teaching, yes, it becomes your reality, but you can shift that, which can create a new reality for you. So like, I was witnessing a lot of things. I saw a lot of dysfunctionality. This is something that really got into my core and became normalized. And I thought that this was what the world is. This is normal. And then the introduction of hip hop came into my life. A friend of mine came to school. You guys remember cassettes? Am I the only one that remembers cassettes? With his Walkman. He's like, yo, Nyle, listen to this. And I was like, what's this? We were young. But he started playing I Wonder If Heaven's Got a Ghetto by Tupac Shakur. I just connected to the storytelling and to the music and to the beat, how the drum was emphasized. Because the way I was taught is the drum is the heartbeat of the mother, and it brings the people together. So I loved hearing the drum at the forefront, and I loved hearing the storytelling. And I loved hearing that I wasn't alone in this dysfunctionality, that there was other people having experiences kind of like mine. And then intermixed with some of these songs, like hip hop became a language of these disenfranchised minority communities. And it became a voice for the voiceless. It was a bunch of youth that were looking around their environment, because if you looked at the Bronx in the early 70s, it was like a war zone. I didn't live it, but I've seen pictures. Buildings were collapsing. The infrastructure was just gone because people weren't investing within those communities because of systemic racism. And I was really drawn to it because I could see that the same thing happening around where I was growing up. The houses were going to crap. Everything was falling apart. We've been on a water boil advisory for I don't know how long now. I think it might get fixed, but that's going to take like what? I think about 10 years to lay the infrastructure down. Finally, after all this, we're in 2020. So I was just so drawn to it. I was drawn into the true spirit of what hip hop was supposed to be. Using art to express yourself, especially when you're subconsciously taught your whole life that you're below and that you're savage, to be able to walk up to somewhere and be able to pour that out onto a wall and saying, F it, everybody's going to see this regardless. One of the main influences within my practice, not only was it Norval Morrisville and woodland art, it was graffiti. Hence my use of aerosol techniques within my practice today. I learned all those can techniques from my time with graffiti. One of my favorite pieces was done by this young writer. Writers are known as graffiti artists in the community, and they were painting on trains. And they were expressing how all they really see is negativity and violence within their surroundings. And then they'll put that onto a train. So that message would just travel the entire city. You know what? People had to look at it. It became a tool for me of well-being and just to express what I was going through. When I meant that how it got corrupted was how it just turned into money and I guess the corporate getting its hands on it. And like Tupac and Biggie, they would talk about that. But they were also allowed to have fun and speak their truth.
Mm-hmm.
So every so often, yeah, there would be a bad song, or what we deem, I guess, as a bad song, where they're talking about, some pretty gruesome things. But it's their art, it's their right to speak that truth. One of the founding members of the Universal Zulu Nation that was around in these times with the founding members of hip hop was a Native American. And there was a lot of Native Americans within those communities. There were grass dancers. That's how those steps got into breakdancing. It allowed me to be confident within myself, to be like, yeah, you know what, I can speak my truth. I can paint my truth. Like I look at graffiti and just the impact that had on me. I'm not out there anymore. I support it. I don't look down at it, but I also see how even the graffiti community has changed. Graffiti battles used to be great ways to like push each other. But now I see young writers out there, they're getting stabbed for getting crossed out. Or somebody will cross them out and they'll wait in the alley. Do you know how much thought and effort goes into that? I don't want to be sitting in an alley for hours and hours on end at nighttime waiting to inflict harm upon another artist. But it's the norm now. So it's changed. But I see a renaissance coming, and I'm excited to see the ongoing narrative and evolution of that art form.
Thank you so much. There's so much that you have said that resonates with me. You mentioned that what you see and what you're taught is so much a reflection of your reality.
Yeah.
But the reality is something that is not set in stone, because you've just talked about the evolution. We're always evolving. And that evolution is an awareness, right, of our moments or our nows, meaning that who we are now is more than what meets the eye, right? It's more of our histories, it's more of our experiences that are grounded within those histories, right? Yeah. What I'm getting at here is that, and I'm going back to Tupac, he said something about a rose growing out of concrete. So on the surface, as you've mentioned, you see that more for people coming in, but it's just the reality, it's the truth at that time. But if there isn't that evolution or understanding, then sometimes I feel that it puts us in that position of compromise, in that we don't really get to explore all of that and understand how we're connected. You've also talked about that connection, right, between the Indigenous and the Black community in terms of music, right, or art, right? So I feel that it is very important. And I think it also connects to what Lee Miracle speaks about with the cultural transformation, right? Because it becomes the norm as what we know it as,
yes.
Right? So again, thank you so much for this opportunity to further explore all of this.
I just wanted to say now, thank you for sharing that and your expression of hip hop as storytelling. There is that co-opting by corporate America for money, but at the same time, you mentioned there is that renaissance that is coming, and it is a storytelling that evolves, and there's that connection of people in sharing their stories. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that.
There's so much that, especially when it comes to hip hop and rap, they started off as community movements like the Blood and the Crips, Brotherly Love Over Oppressed Domination, Crips, Community Revolutionary in Progress. The intention was so good, and it's to no fault of their own. This is like very planned corruption of it, very well thought out corruption of it from, I don't want to name it, but like from white society. I guess, I don't know, fear? Letting fear? I don't know. I still need to figure that out.
It's a form of silencing, I think.
Yeah.
That's what we see with the whole colonial order and structure, right?
Yeah. And we're seeing that happen again in even my community. I don't know, if you're going to kill the Hydra, you got to cut off all the heads at the same time, or else it'll just keep popping up. It'll keep going, and it'll continue to dominate.
Thank you for that. Thank you, because this is what, as a person of color or a Black woman, there's always, right? Because it's so much of our lived experience, right? And when you speak your truth, sometimes there's a level of vulnerability because you're putting yourself out there, right? But it's much needed, right? So you talked about the idea of divide and conquer. We see it's the same thing that's endemic in our community. We have colorism, right? We have, again, and all of these are learned behavior. Where is it coming from, right? It's coming from colonial masters. It's coming from the ideologies of white supremacy, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, absolutely, even in my own families, right? So yeah, and the unfortunate thing is, for me, I'm speaking my truth, is that when you talk about critical consciousness or consciousness in terms of awareness of system and structure, not everybody's on the same level. Some people are still asleep, right? And how do you even begin to have a conversation? How do you even, if you're thinking of the collective voice in terms of the struggle? Because then if you don't have that balance, then it makes it difficult to even begin to not even to unpack, but also to dismantle, right? To challenge. I don't like challenge. That's too fancy. To tear down.
Yeah.
Right? How do you begin to, right? It's beyond dissonance, right? Even with my own children, how do I even begin? My daughter, who is 9, she came to me a few months ago and she's like, Mommy, I need to learn about my ancestors. I'm like, what? Where's that coming from? Right? I need to learn. And of course, I love it. I embrace it. But how do my struggle is, how do I even begin to teach? Where do I start? Right? As a child who was born in a nation that was built, right, on white supremacy, and people will see this and say, oh my God, you're what are you talking about? And blah, blah. No, it's just the truth, right? We're living on indigenous territories. It's the truth. What? Am I supposed to just continue? No. So how do I even begin to have this conversation with a 9-year-old? How do I even begin to unpack not only that, but also in terms of our own people? Me growing up in Jamaica and the reality of what I was taught, going back to what you said, Nyle, right? Of all of that, when beneath the surface, there's so much. Okay, there's so much, because all of that have to do with not only our ancestors in Jamaica, but our ancestors in the oceans, our ancestors in what's called now Africa, our ancestors all over, right? How do we even begin to talk about that, right? All of our ancestors, right, who have fought. It's not like they were just passive about resistance, right? So it's, thank you. Thank you so much.
One of the main things too, and I see this within my own community, and I tell this to myself, like, we're still learning. We got to be gentle with one another.
Yes, that's true.
We are still learning. And even the civil rights movement and our resistance to colonialism within the indigenous community, this is an ongoing narrative and it's still unfolding. And it seems like a lot of the Insta generation is forgetting, like, our ancestors have been doing this for a long time. It's going to keep going, and it should. And I have to understand that, where did we learn this divide? How come we're turning on each other now? Where did this divide and conquer come? I have to remember, I look at my own history, it's like, yeah, you know what? My grandmothers, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, they were taken into Roman Catholic dominant schools as children and beaten and told that they're less than. Hey, look at the nuns. That's what you want to be. You're savage. Don't talk your language. Cut your hair. Don't be proud of your skin color. You see that nun right there? You be proud of that skin color. So that's what I have to keep drawing. I was like, you know what? We got to be gentle. We're still learning. We're still healing. It's a long path of healing, and you don't run up a mountain. If you run up a mountain, you're dead. I don't mean from like just exhaustion, but like oxygen levels, you don't do that. You don't dive straight down into the depths of the ocean. I don't like white supremacy. I don't let that define my being and how I walk on this earth, because the way I was taught is, guess what? They're a member of creation. So I'm still learning how to balance that and move forward in a productive but good way. And good is the only definition. What I mean by that is that good, kind, gentle way of the Anishinaabe. How am I doing this? Using love, respect, humility, courage, wisdom, and truth. My mom, a single mother, raising lots of kids, emergency foster care on the reserve as well. So sometimes little children would come and spend the night with us that have just experienced horrible trauma. And there came a point when I went into high school. So on the reserve education, the schools only go up to grade 8. And after grade 8, you have to get bused into the neighboring town to the high school, which is a white colonial town. And they're very proud of their colonial heritage up there. Very proud. People that live in Toronto, and this is no fault of their own, I find, are in a bubble of what it's really like out there in Ontario, because they're really proud of their colonial heritage. So we had to go into this town called Wyerton. It's a high school, predominantly white. And then you have the group of natives, the native kids that come off the res, the poor native kids that come off the res. And you feel it. You feel it, the teachers. You feel it. And the racism, you feel it. Some of the first times I started really experiencing that, it's just like, but you're at an age where it's not about that. It's about acting tough, putting on that exterior so you don't be vulnerable. And I started giving my mom a lot of problems. You know, she was dealing with a lot, her own traumas. Lots of kids. I wasn't the only child. Her whole story and experience. Growing up as a second-generation residential school survivor. And she made one of the toughest decisions she's ever had to make. And I was so angry about it when I was younger, so angry. But then I look at it as she did one of the most loving things. She kicked me out of the house. My mom's first and only husband, they divorced after a year this is way before I was alive. But he was always there for the family. And I call him my godfather today. He lived in Richmond Hill, northern Richmond Hill, now called Oak Ridges. And I moved into that house. And it was a big white suburban house. Like I felt like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, getting out of the car with my box. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna like this. And then I got enrolled into high school, which was in Aurora, Ontario. And Aurora was and still is, a very predominantly rich white suburb. Some of the richest people in Ontario live in Aurora or Newmarket. So I went to a white high school. And this is like, for lack of a better term, I guess it's called a res kid. That's what we call each other. We're res kids. We have that shared experience. I was a res kid. And that's the first time where I learned that, wow, everything that I thought was normal, this isn't normal. I was so angry. I'm like, how does this kid have 2 loving parents? Man, all these kids always got fresh clothes. They get cars at the age of 16 for their birthday. They get allowances. They would brag to me about their allowances they get. And I was like, everything that I thought was normal, I come to learn was what they call dysfunctional. And I was so angry. And that's when I started working through that anger. And it really almost pulled me down. And I only came over that when a teacher of mine, and it resonates to me to this day, was like, Nyle, you know, it was okay to be angry. It was okay. It's okay to be angry. And it just clicked. Somebody, it was a white teacher. It was like the first time anybody's ever said that to me. It was bad in that school. Teachers were racist. The other kids are like, oh, you're Native American? Oh, don't come to our party. I know you're just going to get drunk and black out. Felt very isolated and alone there. They would laugh. I got jumped 3 times by a group of boys. Left for dead. Almost died. Just what I later found out is because they don't like natives. So I got aggressive and I started numbing that pain. But it was going back to storytelling and my culture and traditions, going back to my fire, going back to my lodge, that I learned to push through that, really push through that. And hip hop was a part of that as well.
Miigwech, you've shared so much today, and to be in a safe space of sharing is so important these days. It's medicine for us to be safe and share as well, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm learning and I'm building. I'm given the tools now for my own journey as well as for my daughter. Yeah, so thank you. And as an educator as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And thank you for taking that time out of your day to listen with a whole heart. And for that, I say thank you.
Bamapi.
Bamapi Guadeloupe, until I see you again.
Lying here awake, the night it slowly fades, and all that still remains, the shame in our mistakes. You know that we can't stay forever in this place. Let's try to wash away the truth we can't erase. Playing through every thought, leaving me in a blank stare. Wanting more, can't stop now. Are you the one to take me there? Let's leave remorse for a second more. Just one more night to set things off course. And if you're feeling all alone, I will help you bury the bones. When the dust begins to clear and you're no longer here, I'm left to play